Hello and welcome to the Low Code Campfire for Friday, June 7th, 2024. I'm Patrick Anderson. I'm standing in for Dale today. He is off getting some well-deserved R&R. This is episode number 150, and our main topic for today, and that is after we've covered anything that anybody, any pressing matters anybody wants to bring to the call. If we still have time, we're going to revisit the topic from the Low Code Cafe on Wednesday. I asked my AI assistant to come up with a clever title for our episode today, so that's what we got: Relational Rendezvous, Mastering Entity Matchmaking with PlantinApp. So if we get there, that's great. So the Low Code Campfire is a community gathering of people who use PlantinApp and people who might be interested in using PlantinApp. We invite all skill levels, so no matter what your experience is with PlantinApp or coding at all, we invite you here to ask questions of the community and to get help from others, and hopefully be able to provide some ideas too. So we really encourage you to participate. Every episode is recorded, as is this one right now, and we post those on YouTube so that you can go back and reference anything that you learn in the sessions. And each session has a table of contents posted on YouTube so that you can scroll through that and go and get right to where you want to the part of the episode that you want to see. So we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that by scanning this QR code here, and that way you're notified when episodes are posted. We have a really simple agenda. I'll go around and we'll do some introductions, and then we'll do a first call and see if anybody has anything they want to bring to the group. If I don't think there's any new contributions to Campfire this week or new feature requests, but if there are new ones, we would usually cover those. We have a section where we're looking at the low-code development playbook, which is something that we're working on internally, and we just want to discuss our plays that we're adding with you to get feedback and see what you think. And then at the end, if we have time, we have a segment called Dark Corners and Ghost Stories, and this is where you share things that were really mysterious while using PlantinApp and that you found the solution for. And then after that, we'll adjourn the meeting, and if anybody who wants to can stick around for the afterglow session, which is where we stop the recording and we can talk freely. So please engage with us. Anything you can use the chat window, raise hand, or you can simply unmute and speak. And we encourage you to do any of those. Simple guidelines: keep yourself muted if you have noise in the background and you're not talking, and be courteous to each other. You can submit questions and topics ahead of time by scanning this QR code here. And then finally, introductions. So I'm Patrick, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good to see you guys here. So awesome. Well, we'll move right along into first call. Does anybody have anything they want to bring to the group? That's a quiet response. Often we have something. But if not, I think I have plenty of things to talk about. So I'll give you just a moment more. Anybody can jump in if you want to. If you have anything you want to share that you've learned recently or that you want to get help with. All right, cool. Well, I will go ahead and move along into the my pre-prepared topic. So, and that is a follow-up to our Low Code Cafe that we had on Wednesday. The title of that was Boost Your Low Code Skills, Entity Relationship Best Practices, specifically in PlantinApp. And that was Low Code Cafe episode 163. So there's a couple things that I wanted to follow up on. I had a correction that Bogdan pointed out to me later, and yeah, it makes sense. I just didn't really think about it in that way when I was presenting. So I wanted to make, I don't think that probably anybody's too concerned about it, but I want to make sure it's clear that when you use our entity property, which is when you, it's a 1-to-1 technically relation, or not technically, actually, that's what I'm saying here. It can be a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-many relationship, but it can be used as a 1-to-1 relationship, but technically it's not enforced as a 1-to-1 relationship. That's not something that we do in the database. So in regards to the database, it's always a 1-to-many relationship. In other words, the child entity can have items can be related to multiple parents. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And then I wanted to take a look at what I was missing. Anybody who joined probably saw that at the end, I couldn't get my final demo to work correctly, and I had to pull over my inspiration site. And I just wanted to clarify that, what I missed there. So let's take a look at that real quick. Let me find my correct screen here. I think this is it. Yes, here we go. So I was on the, so if just to, for everybody to recall, at the end, I was doing a many-to-many relationship between support cases and activities. So I want activities to be able to have multiple support cases and support cases to have multiple activities. And the way it's set up out of the box with Plantinap is that you get, oh, I got logged out already. So let me just log myself back in. Alrighty, you get set up with multiple. So the relationship was set up from the support cases listing, and I set it up as a list of activities. And so I have this interface automatically created that if I click here, I see that my support case has 2 activities listed. So I want to be able to also have activities with multiple support cases. So what I couldn't get to work there at the end was I had the add existing support case button, and it was opening up and it was saying that the activity filter wasn't set. So all that was that in editing the form that I copied from another page, which is this one here, on the events, on this display error message here, what I had done was I had forgotten to, this said query string support case ID here, and I had forgotten to change it to the activity ID, which is the context I'm in now. So because I had done that, it was saying that there was no activity filter set. And actually this word right here should be changed to no support case filter set, because I'm looking at the list of support cases for activities. So let me save those changes there, reload, and this is what I was hoping to demo at the end of the call, and I had to pull my my other site over to show this to you, but here we go. So, and this is automatically filtering, so I only have these support cases available, and there's only 1 left. So I can click add there, and so now this is the list of support cases for this activity. And in case anybody wasn't on the call or forgets my reason for this, so this is a real application that I'm building that's going to be used exclusively for people who participate in our Technical Success Manager program. And the use case here is that I'm going to have an activity type that is a scheduled meeting or an ad hoc meeting, and I want to add support cases to that activity so that I can automatically create agendas for the meetings based on support cases and other data. So we'll pull other data into the agenda as well, but I want to pull open support cases for the client into the agenda for the scheduled meeting or ad hoc meeting. And so that's why I want to relate support cases to activities. So now, once I've done this, if I go to any of these support cases, so let's just choose this activity is client scheduled meeting, and the current state is June 6th. So If I go to one of these support cases and then look at the activity log, I have that client scheduled meeting for June 6th as an activity for the support case. So this is a reciprocal relationship. If I add an activity here, I'll see the support case listed on the other page as one of the support cases associated with the activity. So I just wanted to put a wrap on that. So then, does anybody have any questions or thoughts about that?
Yeah, Patrick, you should add that description of what needed to be done to make it work. Add that to the end of the presentation recording on
Okay,
Wednesday as an
sure.
idea. I mean, this happens, I don't know, once in a while where you need to say, oh, this is what made it work.
Yeah, sure.
Seems
Yeah.
like that would be a good place for it.
Cool. Like you mean like a little note in the that comes up on the screen or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad you figured it out.
Yep. And I think I was, because I was going over time a little bit, I was rushing it a bit, and I just missed that detail. So it happens. Okay. So anybody have any other thoughts about what I did here as far as the many to many and getting? So really, when you use a list of property type in Plant and App, you get that relationship table automatically, which allows you to add. It has a column it has a column for both entities that are in that many to many relationship, and it simply adds an ID from one entity and an ID from the other to connect them together. So that's how the relationship happens, and we give you that initial interface for getting a list of the what we call the child entity, but really they're kind of equal entities. But we give you that interface to get that list of the child entity. But the subsequent demo I did was how can I get this list also for the child entity, so that I can do similar things for the child entity by adding the parent entity items. Cool. All right, let me go back to presentation here. So so let's take a look at the token that I was talking about when I was showing the status entity. So as a, oh, hold on one second. I just want to, uh, Bogdan's going to join us, and he said that he was having trouble getting into the meeting, so I'm sending him a link to it. So as a, yes.
By the way, Matthew just said the same thing. He was having trouble getting in. You say
Really?
something about the link being old.
I'm not sure what to do about that.
I think you didn't send out a link maybe this time, and we're using old ones that we have. Is that
Really?
what's going on?
It should be the same. Huh. Let me just, I'm really not sure if I can change that now that the meeting is going. That's
Can you resend a link? Fresh one. Say, Matt, now that you've used my link, your name shows up as me. There's
oh
two of
yeah,
me.
yeah, that's happened. Yeah.
Oh, a smarter me just showed up.
Try
I wouldn't count on that, Mark.
something else here. Oh, so it's only. So, I apologize if anybody else has trouble getting to the meeting. That's really strange. Evidently, I can't get the actual meeting. I can only get the registration link for some reason. Oh well. I don't want to dwell on this too much, so I guess I'll need to oh, here we go. That's the link there. Just in case anybody else gets a notification from somebody saying they're having trouble entering the meeting, just send them this link here that I'm going to paste there. So,
Okay,
and
I'll do that.
yep. Okay, cool. So, going back to where I was, so yes, on Wednesday, for the support cases entity, I had the status column here, and when I was showing you the adding the statuses, I was talking about the fact that I created this code um, column here as a way of referencing the status without having to know hard-coded IDs when I so in some cases in a workflow or an automation or something, something might be in a specific status and you want it to go to another specific status, and you really have to know these IDs because that's what's actually stored in the database for these. So and real quick, just so that anybody who's not familiar, if I get rid of my where clause here and run this query, so that for this, what's actually stored in the database when you have a specific status is the status ID, and that corresponds to this ID here. So that ticket we were just seeing in my query was a work in progress ticket. My code for work in progress is WIP. The idea is that I want to be able to, when I'm hard coding a status, instead of going and always having to find this ID, I'm going to have a token where I can use this WIP, which is something that will never change, but the display name, what's actually shown on the front end, this can change anytime, and it will always be consistent, but using this, I'll always be able to get this ID when I need it. So it was just an idea that I presented. It may not work for some people, but it's something that has worked for me in the past, and I wanted to share it with you. And so the token that I used, and this is because I wanted to move along, I didn't show it to you guys. The token that I used was, let's see, actually, I think that I didn't actually get it in here. That's right. So let me pull it up in my other system, which is so and basically it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to pull it up here, but what I'm doing with it is I'm selecting the app from status. I can actually probably build it before I can maybe before it actually comes up on my other screen here. So I'm going to select from app.status, and then we're going to say where code equals, and then I'm going to actually just go ahead and change it to WIP here. And so if I make for my token, this is what I did in my other system here, is I just and then I do have it now. So can edit it here. So let's go to tokens, which I already opened up over here. And I'm going to add a namespace, and I called it, and I could just import the token, but I want to actually show you me building it. So, so then I create the namespace, and then for the namespace, I'm going to add a token, and I called it status by code. And then the definition is just the query I was just showing you, except I'm just going to make the code a parameter, and the default column is going to be the ID. That's what I want to. That's mainly what I want to return. But I decided, why not go ahead and get all the properties just for flexibility, in case there's some reason I want to get any of the other properties. And I often do this. Sometimes, if I know that my token is going to be used really for just one thing, I sometimes will return more properties, not all the time, because sometimes it's really specific what you want, but I'll return more properties just for future flexibility. So we'll save and test this, and then I'll put WIP in here and run it, and so I get that ID. And so then what I can do with this is, just as an example, let me go to workflows and get a new workflow going here. And let's say I want to, if in this specific case, I want to update, partially update a support case. So let's assume that the scenario is this workflow is changing the status of a support case. So I'm going to simply go here and choose the status property, and so we'll just assume that I'm changing it to work in progress. And so this way, when I know that, okay, work in progress is what I want to change this to, I don't have to know that ID. And really the code that you use should be as friendly as possible, and whoever's putting it in will do what works for them, but hopefully they're thinking about others and thinking about codes that make sense. I was sharing this idea with Bogdan just for discussion purposes. I was sharing this idea with Bogdan. We were working together on an application we're building internally, and he liked the idea, but he said that in the case where I was in the specific case that we were looking at that moment when we were working together, he was saying, but in this one, I think we're going to end up having too many types of action or types of values here that the code would be really hard to remember anyway, and you probably would end up going and looking it up, which I get that. That's so for a status entity, usually you're not going to have a ton of them, so it would work out well. So anyway, discussion. What do others on the call think about this this pattern? You have any thoughts or other ways of doing it?
I've basically used a similar type pattern.
Yeah.
Not exactly the way you're doing it, but what I basically did is, for me, I have what I call a list manager. I can actually create lists. It's very similar to DNN's built-in lists from way back in the day. I just kind of recreated it. So it's basically two tables. One is the main list table. The other one are the list items. So I can create any number of lists, with its own name. And then those lists have values. Each one obviously has a record ID, but then on top of that, there's a text value, there's a value field, there's a type field, so forth, so on. And I can design my list dynamically. So in your case right here, statuses, I would create a list called statuses.
Yeah.
Everything would have either a type or a text and a value, whatever it be. And then I have a token that I basically pass it the list name that I want and whatever it is I'm looking up. So if it's the text value I'm looking up, I pass it the text. If it's the record ID, I'll pass it the record ID. And it just returns back that entire record, and then I can pull out the item that I need.
Mm-hmm.
So similar idea,
Yeah.
just a little bit more on the complicated side.
Yeah, well, it's I get it. That's a reusable situation you have there, which works well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it just makes
It
it
doesn't.
so that one piece works throughout my entire website. I can build lists for, virtually anything.
Yeah, and but it doesn't work within the Plantain Apps entity relationship model, but it it works well for you. So that's and I think that it could work well for anyone who has the who has that need. I think it's a great model to use. So what I'm doing here works within well within our entity relationships. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. So there's not really a way for you to. That's not a Plantain App entity, and that wouldn't really work well. Am I
For me,
thinking?
no,
Yeah.
it's not a Plantain App entity, but
Mm-hmm.
again, building it like what you're doing right here, where in a workflow you're using a token, it's works the same exact way.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
long
Yeah.
as you can get that value in there, that's all that's necessary. But yeah, you can't link directly to it because it holds multiple lists. So there's
Yeah.
really
Right.
no direct way to link to it.
Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, so Patrick, this made me do a little mental association with another task that's related but is different.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's okay, can I shift a little bit to
Yeah, sure.
another thing?
Is it the other thing that you mentioned to me, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I have that. So let me just go
You
back to
have
my
a demo?
presentation. How can I actually see the actual ID of a related property? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to address that also.
Well,
So let
now
me
or
go.
later is fine.
No, I think that now is great, since you brought it up. So, keeping with this status idea here, I think I'm going to go back to the support cases entity here. And so I think, and Mark, please correct me if it's incorrect. What you're looking at here is that, so here we have, and I'm just going to set another couple here. Oh, yeah, I did that several times the other day too. I put status at the bottom. So we'll do this one update. So we get a name here. And you're saying what would really be useful for you is to actually see the ID here also, or in place of this, either way. Is that?
Yes, it
Yeah.
would. That's in my case. It wouldn't be a user accessible list. It would be a
Yeah.
list that I'm managing, or the
Okay.
one that Plantain App makes.
Yeah. So in Plantain App, if you're using something that's generated by Plantain App, if you go down here, that's actually available to you right here. Let's see. So the status field is status display name. So that's the reference property from, and this is just to clarify for everyone, this is a standard entity data source. So this is my support cases data source for the support cases entity, and so I have a bunch of properties available to me, and so the status display name is what we're showing here, but this right here is going to be the property that you want. So I'm going to first make sure I add that and save it. And then reload here. And so now I have that status ID here. So, and I could, and I could just get rid of the status display name column if I didn't want that.
Okay. Well, that's exactly what I came around to doing as well.
Okay.
The mental block in my case is that when I'm creating an entity and I'm setting up a column that's going to refer to a foreign table, I know it's going to be joined by the ID. So in the name of my column, I'll say something like status ID instead of calling it status.
Yeah.
Because I know it's actually referring to the ID. So so when
Yeah,
I
and
see
and
the table
here,
being made, the ID column isn't an ID, it's the primary name of
Yeah,
that column.
I get that. Yeah. I think that, like I called the status because I knew that I
That's what it's gonna show.
in this case, I want it to refer to a status. So I want there to be the work in progress name there. That's what I really want. In this case, when I added this in here, probably what I should have done is added the ID here just to make that clarification, because I already have a field called status, which is really just relabeled. The reference is actually status display name. So this is the actual property that's being showed in this field, but but it's relabeled as status. And so here, to make that more clear, if I'm going to have both in, that I really should I should do it like that, and maybe put them next to each other, or just get rid of this completely. But in my case, I still prefer I would prefer I can't think of a case where I would want the property to be actually called status ID, maybe, but I would always want it to be called something like this. And then if I want to bring in the ID, I would label it as such.
Well, you see, I think of it the other way around. I always want the ID, and
Yeah.
the other one is as needed.
Yep. And in the form also, and I'm sure you know this, but just for anybody that is thinking about it. So in the form where I have the status, there's a couple things I can do here. So we're selecting so the underlying value is the ID of the status, and then the display name is is what we're seeing in the dropdown. But we could do a concatenation here. And add the ID, or which probably would be the preferred thing to do here. If you wanted to see the status, you could do a concatenation here and add the ID. So we can do it. Yeah. But that's and then and that's what would show.
Well, yeah, that was the issue. So thank you again.
Sure. Ben, you have a comment about this, I think.
Yes. In response to Mark's comment about showing the ID or vice versa, it works either way. But I've done this myself in grids where I wanted to see the text value, but I also wanted to see its originating actual value. So what I've done is convert whichever field you use, format it as text. Once you do that, you can then get a box where you could put in HTML. I just encapsulate the original value in a div. And then in that div tag, I give it a title. And that title, I give it the opposite value. So if within the div tag is the text, then the title is the ID, or vice versa. If inside the div tag is the ID, then I give the title as the text. That way, when the grid loads and you hover your mouse over it, you're going to see the other value, and it saves you from having to put an additional column that eats up real estate on your screen.
Yeah, that's cool too.
Very clever, Ben.
Does anybody want to see that in practice, or because I like it? We're going to get rid of status ID. That's what we're going to get rid of. And we're going to call this status. And so then if I do something that doesn't look right, guide me. So this is what you're saying, right?
Correct.
Yep. So do and then here I want to put my token for status.
Whichever is the opposite value you want to display.
Yep. So yeah, we'll do the ID, and then I'm going to close the div, and then we'll do let's see, I think it's status display name. I should probably copy that from below, it'd be easier.
You could just click on the name underneath it. Those add tokens on the bottom of that box where you
Yeah,
were typing?
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, they're right here, aren't they? Thanks. Yeah, and I use this all the time too, but for some reason, in this particular case, I just forgot it. Anyway, it's where is it? I'm not seeing it yet. Status display name. There we go. Perfect. Okay, and then something like that is what you're talking about, right?
Don't forget to check allow HTML.
Yes, thanks. And I do that all the time. I
Me
put
too.
HTML.
I always
And then
forget, and then when I look at the grid, I see all the code, and I'm like, whoops.
Yeah, so just a note, Bogdan's journal the call. Maybe we should consider on the product team making this when you do a formatted field. Maybe this should be default because that happens all the time. Anyway, just an idea, and maybe it wouldn't be right as default.
I'll second that motion.
All right, so and then I'm going to get rid of this existing one, and we're going to save it like that, and reload. And so now, well, this I can fix this, but anyway, so now if I mouse over that, I see 3. Mouse over this, I see 2. I like it, Ben. That's a good suggestion.
I like it too. Good job, Ben.
I'm here to help.
All right. Anybody else have any other inspiration or thoughts from that discussion? All right, well, let's see what's next on my bullet list here. So I got done with that one. Oh, look at this. I duplicated a slide and then didn't change it. Oh, well. So, okay, let me make sure going back. Nope, I didn't. Okay, so let me go and find exactly what it was I was going to put in here. Okay, so the first thing, another question that we had, and Mark supplied a lot of this discussion that we're having here, so I really appreciate that. Mark had excellent feedback from our call. So so now going back to the site. So Mark was asking, and Mark, please correct me if I'm make sure that I'm saying it right. What happens really if I go and say I delete the work in progress status or the waiting for TSM status? What happens on this record that has that TSM status? Is that?
Yeah, Cascade delete.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick demo of that here. So I'm going to do a new status here, and it's going to call it okay, so, and I don't really care that I misspelled that because it's going to be gone soon. So now I'll go back to the support cases, and I'm going to edit this one. And status, I'm going to choose status to delete, date, and I'm going to do this one too, just okay, so now I have both of those there. I want to go, I've been using the SQL console and usually do, but actually I want to go directly into, oh, look at that, I timed out. That was not what I wanted to happen. Well, I guess because if I go back in there, it's going to take a long time for me to get back to my database because the server that this is on has a lot of databases, and it takes a long time for the databases node to expand in SSMS. So I'm going to skip that idea because I let my connection time out. So we'll just go here, and I'm going to go to app.support case. And run that and go back here. And so I'm going to take a look at the number 3. So go back over here at the third item, and we'll just, oops. scroll over here, and so our status for here is 8. And I'm going to actually just go ahead and say run that. So I have both of those. So that's we have status 8 here. Now, the reason I wanted to look at it in SSMS is because I wanted to, because here we don't actually see whether a value is null or not, but I wanted to show you. But Mark, you'll have to trust me on that one. So now I'm going to navigate back to statuses. And for status to delete, I'm going to just delete that. And then go back over here and we'll run this query again. And yeah, well, of course, but let's run this again. So we'll look at, I think 3 was one of them, correct? Go over there, and you can see that that the status is gone. But what I wanted to show in SSMS is it is actually a null value. So it just completely removes that record there. So that is what happens if you delete a related entity value.
Okay, so it looks like the default is going to be Cascade delete.
Yes, that's
that would
correct.
be the
and that's because of the way the way we have the tables configured in the database. Yep.
Okay. It's good to know that. I think in a SQL Server, it's not the default. I think at least on the ones that I've been seeing. So it makes sense to be the default in my estimation.
So I don't consider myself a SQL expert at all. So I think that probably Ben or Bogdan could probably address this better than I, but I believe it's because of the foreign key relationship that's set up.
Makes sense. Okay, so what would have happened if we had made that field required? This is going to go and delete or make null the entry that was there.
Yeah, so the next time that you edit that, you'll have to add one.
I think when it's required, we don't allow nulls in the database. So I think at that stage you might be getting an error.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, I think you do.
That's what I
Yeah.
would suspect.
Yeah, you get a when you try to delete that status, you get an error that you can't delete that status. I believe that's correct.
Thank you. That seems appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for that clarification, Bogdan. I've seen that before.
Yeah, I don't know that you were prepared to answer the next question, but that is, what about Cascade update? Yes, that wouldn't, you wouldn't be able to do that in Plant and App, would you? Update the ID? So it would be automatically generated.
Yeah, so right. The IDs are it's a
next one in line.
Yeah, right. It's an ID column. It's set up that way. So yeah, that's correct. That would it would simply be you wouldn't.
It's not a situation that could occur.
Right. Yeah. So what you would change about the related entity is like that display name or code column in this status, which wouldn't impact the support cases table at all, because still we're just looking at this value right here in the support cases table.
Okay, thank you. Curiosity satisfied.
Cool. And then the final question here is confirming if we so you're basically saying, okay, so in the call on Wednesday, I clarified that that we encourage you to use spaces when you are working in your entities here. So if I'm creating a new entity, my property here should and this is one of the things that we're working internally. We have a play in our internal playbook that talks specifically about this, that we should use spaces because this value is used on the front end. And but when this table is actually created, it's going to be created as test cases. That'll be it'll be app.testcases is the table that would be created if I put this in. And actually, I shouldn't put the S there because put this here, the table would actually be called test case. And this is a front end property that we use in like the links to show the list of test cases for if you make this a list a related list entity that's so wherever a plural is appropriate is how we use this, but the table name that gets created for this scenario right here would be test case. And your question there is that when you're creating your SQL for this scenario, that you need to remember that that the actual entity or the actual table name doesn't have that space. And that's correct, you do. But I think though, what my pattern that I follow is that if I'm creating a token or a SQL data source or anything like that, I'm always creating it here. And by creating it here, I come over here and I grab the name of that table here and paste it in here. And so this is my work pattern. And so I don't really feel like there's very many cases where I need to remember that that I don't have that my table name doesn't have a space in it. So I mean, Mark, do you want to expand on that question some more, or?
Well, I think it's just a preference of the way to work. I have the SSMS development screen open all the time, and I do all my work over there.
Yeah. No, I do that also. I'm showing the way that you can stay within the app. And since we've added this, which has been quite a while now, I've used SSMS less than I used to. I used to use it a lot more. I still do, but I used to use it a lot more before we had this. I find that sometimes it's just in order for me to connect to VPN, get to the correct server, I need to expand that databases node that I was talking about earlier. To do all that, it actually is faster for me to develop it right here in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I find myself gravitating towards it as well, but not nearly, I think, as often as you, but I'm getting it.
Yeah.
I like the much larger screen of the other environment. Sometimes the SQL gets pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we've talked about some improvements to this screen, and I think there's definitely room for improvement. Our actual entry here, if I'm remembering correctly, is pretty. It's not too bad. There's quite a bit of room there for us to work with. And hopefully someday we can put the AI assistant in on this page as well. That's something that would be really great to do. But is there anybody that's not familiar with the AI with being able to create queries with the AI assistant? Because that's kind of cool too. And that you can reach anywhere where we have our new new administrative interface that we're working on. So if I add a run SQL query action here, I have the AI assistant over here that I can work with. And the cool thing about this, and I know I'm opening up a bit of a can of worms here because we've had this discussion here before about what actually happens when you're doing this, because we are sending the app schema to the AI assistant, so that the AI assistant has the app schema in context, so you can ask friendly questions about
When does
it's
that
also
schema transfer happen?
I believe it happens when I do the submit. Bogdan, is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. So yeah, there we go. So it found it found my support case details and my status details, and it gave me the join that I need there. So this, of course, it says it's experimental, so sometimes it's a little bit unpredictable, but so this is another cool thing it does. So see, it updated the query that that it had given me, and it actually put a bind parameter in automatically, support case ID.
Well, I have to say, Patrick and Bogdan, that is very impressive.
So yeah, having this on the SQL console, now that's that would be even more powerful. So you'll when we're working on systems, we often come in here and just use it like this. We're not creating an automation job. We're just in here using the because it's convenient to try to use it. I've had some scenarios where I'm really I'm digging in, and I have several joins, and I'm like, okay, if it can do it, it would be so much faster than me going through all those joins. But sometimes it doesn't quite get it right. I've had that scenario, but most often it does pretty good.
Even if it doesn't get it right, it gets it so much closer than my first attempt would have been.
Yeah, sure.
It's faster to find the glitch in its code than it is in my own.
Yep. And anybody have any other thoughts about the process of developing your queries, and in the context of so support case, that this entity actually has a space between support and case, but my table doesn't have it. Anybody have any more thoughts about any of this? Developing your queries, or and I'm guessing most people on this call are probably most often using SSMS, but how do you guys feel about the SQL console the way it is?
Patrick, maybe you can show the cool trick that we do to show all the tables in the database. That makes it a lot more useful for people working outside Sentinel.
Yeah. Instead of doing it on the fly, I know it's pretty easy, but I'm going to just show it on my my personal development site that I work with, because this is one drawback of the fact that that we now are we're recreating the pages and configuration that we have developed with low code each time you do an update, which is kind of it's needed for us to be able to confirm that you really are getting the latest and the greatest. But when you make some customizations to those pages like this, it's a little bit of a drawback to it, but not a big deal. So in configuration, actually I want to go to here. I want to go pages and go to the actual page itself. So go to edit this. And I'm going to edit the SQL console form. So I come here and get manage form. And then on the available entities property here, if you in here, right here. So there's different options you can do here, but all I did here was I just say where, and I commented out, this is the filter that makes you only see the app schema. Well, you see the app schema and you see the users table, roles table, and files table. That's what you see there. But if you want to just simply see all of your tables in your entire database, go in here, edit the SQL console, go to the available entities field, and then simply on line 14, do a comment. So then it's just where parent ID equals -1, and that. Oops. Let me go back here, and then go back to configuration, SQL console, and that's the result here. So you get all the app tables, and now I have all the DBO tables here, and then keep on going down, and we have another schema in there too. The PAA schema is there also. So
that sure makes it more useful.
Yeah, it makes it a lot longer. But our original idea for the SQL console was really all about your application. So that's why we made it so it filters just for the app schema, because these are the tables that are in that you've created in your application using Platinep's entity builder. But yeah, it is certainly useful to see the other stuff as well. And that's how you do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Ben.
This list of tables that you're showing here, this is using that hierarchical
Yes, yep, it is. And
piece that you have.
Yep.
What I was thinking was, could this be enhanced so that you get parent levels like DBO and PAA and APP and so forth, so on. So find a list of all of the parent schemas, and then you just open up the schema that you want. So you don't necessarily have to have a huge long list like this. If all you're looking is for the app, you just open up app and you get that. But if you're looking for a DBO, open up the DBO one and you'll find all those.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, and I'm sure it could be updated to do that. I'm not going to do it live, but I'm sure it could be.
Make a note.
I see a very, very interesting question from Jen Sharp in the chat.
Oh, yeah, Jen. What was that? Yes, and this is Jen. I fully recognize this is a standing question for you too, and we've talked about it in product, and there are some complications there, but I think that it would be a very useful thing. And if anybody's not seeing the chat, Jen's asking if we could have she's calling it a watered down version of SQL Console, but basically a way for SQL Console to only be allowed select statements, so that she could then give SQL Console to the staff in the office at her organization to just select queries from their application tables, so that they can just.
Yeah, that could be easily done through a database user, right? You could have a database user that has only read access to the database. Create a connection string for that user,
and then do a
block the connection string. Block the connection string here. And they could try to run update deletes, but they will fail because they don't have permissions.
That's actually a really great idea. Yeah.
And simple.
And simple. Yeah. So that's a way that it could be done for. We talked about this in the product meeting, and and I don't think anybody came up with that idea then, but that is probably the simplest way to do it. Yeah, a separate connection string. Maybe it was long enough ago that we didn't have the connection string on this page yet at that point. Maybe. Anyway, that's great.
And of course, this can be done, I think, in the front end as well. So you don't need to use this page, because then people will need to have access to all of the things in the menu. You could build a custom form that does the same thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So not necessarily this. It wouldn't be the same form that's in configuration. It would be a whole separate page that uses this, but has the separate connection string hard coded in, and gives them the permission to see it without having to go to configuration. Cool. Jen, we'll take a look at that together soon.
Okay, love it. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other thoughts? Actually, we're ready to adjourn here. I kind of lost track of time. We're having so much fun. So let me put a wrap on this. And anybody who wants to stay on for the afterglow. We didn't get to our, these have been in this presentation for a couple weeks now, and we keep on not getting to them. So hopefully we'll next time. So thank you everybody for a lively discussion. I really appreciate it. And until we see each other next time, and I think Dale will be back, happy low coding. And stay around for Afterglow if you can.